This man walked into a hospital room 3 years ago to read to a complete stranger who couldn't move. 18 months later, she walked down the aisle to marry him. Most people wouldn't even visit their own family in hospital after a few weeks, let alone a total stranger. But what this man did changed everything. This isn't some soppy rom-com. This is real life. And the story of how these two went from strangers to husband and wife is something you really need to hear. Because it shows that sometimes the smallest, most unexpected acts can completely rewrite your future. Her name is Emily Thompson. 3 years ago, her life just stopped. She was 29. A graphic designer in Bristol, living a perfectly ordinary life. Until one morning she woke up and couldn't move her legs. No warning. No accident. No explanation. She went to bed fine. She woke up paralyzed from the waist down. The doctors called it transverse myelitis, inflammation of the spinal cord that they can't always explain. It hits roughly 1 in a million people each year. Emily was that one. The first few weeks were pure terror. Endless tests. MRIs, lumbar punctures, blood work, scans. The doctors said there was a chance. Intense physio, steroids, treatment. She might recover. But no promises. Some people walk again in months. Others never do. She was trapped in this awful limbo, not knowing if this was temporary or for life. And then it got even harder. Her family lived up in Manchester, over 200 miles away. Her mum had bad diabetes, couldn't travel. Her dad had passed away a couple of years earlier. Her brother was serving overseas with the forces. Friends came at first. Flowers, cards, promises. But after 2 weeks, the visits dried up. After a month, even the texts slowed to nothing. People have their own lives, their own worries. It's easy to forget someone when they're not right there. Emily spent 3 months alone in that hospital room. Nurses were kind, but they had dozens of patients. Physio came twice a day, 4 half-hour sessions. The rest of the time, she just stared at the ceiling or watched programs she didn't care about. Depression hit hard. She later told journalists there were days she didn't want to keep going. Days when the loneliness felt worse than the paralysis. She'd wake to the beep of machines, watch people hurry past her door, and feel completely invisible. The hospital had become her prison. 4 white walls, a window over a car park, a TV playing the same repeats. She couldn't escape. Couldn't move. Couldn't even get to the bathroom alone. Everything needed help. Everything reminded her of what she'd lost. And the worst part? Doing it all completely alone. No hand to hold during the agony of physio. No one to cry with on the bad days. No one to celebrate the tiny wins. Just emptiness. Then came James Harper. James was 32. Worked in IT for a software firm. And had just come through a really rough divorce. His wife had left him for someone else. After 7 years together, he was paralyzed in his own way. Emotionally numb, lost. His therapist suggested volunteering. Something to get him out of his head. To find purpose again. Helping others is sometimes the best way to help yourself. she said. It sounded like rubbish to him then. But he signed up anyway. He joined a local charity. One that connects volunteers with hospital patients who need companionship. They asked if he'd do a long-term visit. Someone with literally no one else. Most volunteers want quick hits. Feel-good moments, no real commitment. But this person needed reliability. Someone who'd keep showing up. That someone was Emily. James said yes. No questions asked. He turned up one Thursday afternoon. In October. With a book from his own shelf. The Count of Monte Cristo. He knocked. Introduced himself. And asked if she'd like him to read to her. Emily later said. She nearly told him to leave. She was so deep in darkness that the idea of pity made her furious. She didn't want charity. Didn't want someone ticking off their good deed box. But something about him. Awkward, genuine. Just a normal bloke with a book. Made her say yes. He wasn't fake cheerful. Didn't treat her like glass. He just pulled up a chair. Opened the book. And started reading. That first session. About 40 minutes. 3 chapters. His voice filled the silence. That had swallowed the room. 4 months. He didn't pry. Didn't ask how it happened. Didn't treat her like she was broken. He just read. When he finished. He marked the page. Closed the book. And asked. Shall I come back? She said sure. Expecting the usual excuse. The vanishing act. But 2 days later. He was back. Then 3 days after that. Then every single day. Rain, shine, after work. He'd drive 20 minutes. Walk in. And read. Some days 30 minutes. Before other commitments. Other days 2 full hours. Lost in the story. They finished The Count. In about 6 weeks. Then Jane Eyre. The Great Gatsby. Harry Potter. Stephen King. Random thrillers from charity shops. After 2 months. Something changed. They started chatting. Between chapters. She'd ask about his day. He'd moan about nightmare IT tickets. Office coffee that tasted like regret. The colleague who microwaved fish. He'd ask about her design work. And her face would light up. Talking fonts, color theory. Projects she'd loved. Those little talks grew longer. Reading became half reading. Half talking. Half laughing at daft in-jokes. Her physio was brutal. Hours of exercises. That hurt like hell. And often felt pointless. Weeks with zero progress. Legs as numb as day one. Doctors were hopeful. But honest. At 6 months. Whatever hadn't come back. Probably never would. That deadline loomed. Like a storm cloud. James was there through it all. On hopeless days. When physio went wrong. News was grim. He didn't spout clichés. No, everything happens for a reason. No forced positivity. He just sat with her. In the mess. He'd switch to light books. Comedies, silly thrillers. Anything to give her brain a break. On good days. A tiny tingle. A toe twitch. He'd cheer like she'd won gold. Around the 6-month mark. Real feeling returned. In her left leg. Not imagined. Real. Physio ramped up. Progress was glacial. The kind that tests your soul. Over the next 4 months. Tingle's slight movement. Standing with support. One shaky step on bars. Every millimeter felt huge. She knew how easily. It could have stayed nothing. James was there for every step. By then he wasn't just the reader. He brought her favorite flat white. From the cafe near his flat. Smuggled in proper food. Hospital mac and cheese. Was basically cardboard. Helped her practice the wheelchair. Gave her back some independence. Wheeled her outside. On sunny days. So she could feel the sun again. Nurses joked he should get his own staff badge. Around month 10. They both knew. This was more. Emily started doing her hair. On his visiting days. Wearing real clothes. Not gowns. Caring how she looked. First time in ages. James caught himself. Thinking about her constantly. Spotting something funny. And instantly wanting to tell her. Neither said it. Too complicated. She was still his patient. Still vulnerable. One evening. After a chapter finished. Heart hammering so loud. She couldn't remember the book. She just asked. Fancy grabbing coffee sometime? Like, outside hospital. A proper date. He laughed. That surprised, real laugh. And said he'd wanted to ask. 4 months. But didn't want to be that guy. They agreed. Once she was discharged. Once life felt normal again. A real date. Emily left hospital. After 14 months. 14 months of tiny wins. Huge setbacks. Relearning to walk. Like a toddler. She could manage short distances. With a cane. About 70% back. Doctors called it remarkable. She called it a miracle. Mixed with the hardest work. Of her life. Their first outing. That coffee date. A little cafe. Outside table. 3 hours of talking. About everything and nothing. No hospital smell. No machines. No interruptions. Just 2 people. Getting to know each other. Even though they already knew each other better than most couples ever do. They started dating properly. Emily said it was the easiest relationship she'd ever had. He'd seen her at rock bottom. Crying, angry, defeated. And stayed. No pretending. No masks. Just real. They'd already done the hardest part. 8 months later. James proposed. Back in that same hospital room. Staff let him book it. For an hour. They thought it was the sweetest thing ever. He brought the same worn copy of The Count of Monte Cristo. The one from day one. Inside the cover. In his scruffy handwriting. You taught me that showing up is the most powerful thing you can do. Will you let me keep showing up for you forever? She said yes. Before he finished asking. Tears. Laughter. Both of them. They married last year. Small ceremony. About 50 people. Her mum flew down. Despite her health. Wouldn't miss it. His family came. Hospital staff came. Some crying harder than anyone. And when it was time to walk down the aisle, she did it without the cane. She'd trained for months. Just for that moment. Building strength. Balance. It wasn't far. Maybe 30 feet. But she walked every step. On her own. Legs shook a little. She made it. Not a dry eye. In the place. In interviews after the story went viral, Emily said the hardest part of the paralysis wasn't losing the ability to walk. It was the loneliness. And one man, just by showing up, ended it.